let's actually talk about profitability and how to actually build the profit inside. Like how to make it built in instead of figuring all the time, thinking, wondering that like, are we profitable or not, or and so on. Good examples and some stories, like when we first, I mean, we have been using this profit first concept for many years, but still, like when we sometimes, like when we launched like new brand, and it happened that we kind of didn't have the same concept on that like specific area. What ended up happening is that I mean, you kind of don't have, you actually have much less control. So which means that if something actually happens, then you might end up in a situation where, I mean, it's basically end up in a situation where you pretty much have nothing to show for. So let's actually dive into this so I can tell you the story later on. So basically we place additional significance on whatever we encounter first. And when profit actually comes first, it is the focus and it is never forgotten. So basically running the business based on what you can really afford to do today, not what you hope to be able to afford someday. So there's actually two major questions, like when we are starting a business, and if you ever like, I mean, we have had this kind of approach like all the time, like when building new businesses, but actually we should have the same approach when creating new brands. And that's actually something that we kind of missed to do, and for kind of like didn't realize to do. So there's two major questions to consider in this area. So, okay, first of all, like, who's your number one employee? What do you think? Let's say even if you have like superstar employees and, you know, a player team or whatever, but who is the most important person? Yes, I mean, it's me, especially if it's just me alone, right? So I should probably take pretty good care of the most important person in my company. And second question is that, okay, now I know that I'm the most important person. Second thing is that, what if actually something we start a new project, but something goes wrong, and you know, as human beings, we tend to be really sucky in kind of like estimating time and being too hopeful and overestimating what we can achieve in 1 year. So let's say that, okay, we spend 2 years into something, then what happens if the whole thing ends after 2 years? So what do you have to show for? So the second question would be like, what do you have to show for? Like, if you have to leave right now from whatever project that you're doing, like, what do you have? What do you walk with? And if the answer is that nothing, I mean, I haven't been able to pay myself and I haven't been able to, you know, there's no funds, then okay, fine. So was it like complete waste of time? So that's something to consider. And yeah, like I mentioned, we did this mistake that we started a new brand, and it wasn't its own company, so it was part of the existing company, but you know, so it was just kind of like hiding internally in all our reports. So we couldn't clearly see that, like we couldn't clearly treat it as its own separate business, because it was already part of the business. So what ended up happening is that, like, we just started working on it, and we have probably worked around maybe like 1.5 years or something like this. I mean, our team. And then we ended up in a situation with this brand that there's a couple of difficulties, and to actually solve those issues, we need to throw more money into it. And we decided that no, that's not what we want to do. So we kind of ended up just forgetting about that brand and just move on to different things. And what do we have to show for all that effort that our team and like ourselves put for those like almost 2 years? Nothing, because it wasn't really, although we were following this like profit first on a company level, but based on this brand, that brand was something in the end that, I mean, we shouldn't have even done that, because in the end we didn't have anything to show for. So that's definitely not the best approach. So yeah, I mean, we need to pay ourselves first, and not just pay salary, but pay basically, I mean, not just on a company level, but basically pay on every element that makes sense. Meaning that if you start a new brand, if you start a new venture, if you start basically a new business partner or whatever. So profit is something that really must be like baked into the business, and it's good. Next question is probably like, okay, how do we do that? How do we make it so that it's every day, every transaction, every moment? Because it's not an event, it's actually a habit. And if you think about like how we started our like Amazon selling journeys, is that we didn't actually, well, I mean, we weren't familiar with all this system at that time. So what we ended up doing was the first 1.5 years is that we were just 100% focused on growth, and we wanted to grow as quickly as possible. So we ended up reinvesting 100% of everything back into the business, like all the time for the first at least like 18 months, which meant that we didn't pay ourselves like a single dime, which was, I mean, it worked out, meaning that we were able to grow really quickly. But in retrospective, I mean, that wasn't really like smart move, because let's say that if something would have gone wrong, like let's say that, okay, maybe I would have gotten sick, or maybe, maybe something would have happened with our products or whatever, then, I mean, we would have pretty much left with nothing. We would have like nothing to show for those almost 2 years worth of work. And the thing is that, like, if you have all focus on growth, so it's also good to consider that what is like this healthy level of growth. So what is something that actually sustainable? So what is actually the perfect size for the business? So if we have this different kind of approach, that we are not 100% focused on growth, instead we are focused on building it healthy and sustainable, then it will just happen naturally, because we are, having a healthy business, but like growing at the pace that we are able to keep up with. So that also means that not being afraid to dump things, like, okay, if certain products don't work, then we'll just move on. So figure out the things that make profit and dump the things that don't work. So this sustained profitability really depends on efficiency. And, when less money is available to run the business, then it also makes us find ways to get the same or better results with less. Because if you just don't have the funds, then we will find a way how to make it happen, like regardless. So when we take the profit first, then we just need to think of other ways. So it kind of creates these good constraints on becoming creative. And that's the thing about this 4-week launch as well. Like, for low risk, low budget, meaning that, okay, you have only 4 weeks, and you are only allowed to be spending like X amount. So that already like creates this constraint that, okay, fine, you need to be fast, and you cannot start spending money on paying like hundreds of dollars to copywriters and image creators and so on. So yeah, this is basically the book Profit First by Michael Witz, that transform your business from a cash-eating monster, a money-making machine. So this is really like a powerful concept, and he was basically saying that, I mean, his story was that he basically sold one of his businesses and ended up with was like 500K in cash, and then he was so excited and started like spending it and actively investing in different companies, and then oops, suddenly he noticed that he's out of money. So he out of money to that point that he was basically telling his family that, well, I mean, okay, kids, we don't have any money. So even his one of his kids was, I mean, brought piggy bank, giving that, hey, dad, I mean, we can use this money to buy some food. So he pretty much went not bankrupt, but anywhere close to it. So he had this big realization that, I mean, obviously it needs to have a different approach. So he kind of turned it around that there needs to be a new formula. I mean, it's not sales minus expenses equals profit. No, it's sales minus profit equals expenses. And that kind of forced this concept of that. I mean, he's been able to like also teach other companies to do the same, and it has worked for those. And basically also for us, like whenever we haven't followed this practice, this system, then we have ended up in situations that we're just spending far too much, and we are not like sometimes you might be too optimistic, and you might think that, well, I mean, we're going to have this and this, and then it's going to take off, and you're going to launch a new product, and it's going to be amazing. It's so much better than everything else on the marketplace. But then you get it live, and it doesn't work out. So it adds these good levels of constraints. Okay, but anyway, I mean, what's the problem here? Why do we even do this? Well, I mean, the usual problem is that there's just lack of awareness. Okay, where is actually money going? You probably know also these kind of people. I at least know plenty of people who are always saying that, at the end of the month or whatever, I mean, they are always out of money. Who knows such a person? And even this one guy has been saying that, I mean, he has basically doubled his salary like many times, but still he's left with nothing at the end of the month. So how can that actually be? Meaning that you earn twice as much as you did before, but you're still left with nothing. That's because people really lack the awareness, and it doesn't work. Like if there's no constraints, if people have this used to just spending without really putting attention where it actually goes, then I mean, I can understand it can easily happen, right? And then another fear in business is that, okay, what happens if you don't get paid on time? And debt, I mean, are you able to pay the bills next month? Motivation, how much can you pay yourself? Like, let's say that everything goes down then, or let's say that you don't even receive any income, let's say for 2, 3, 4, like 6 months. Like, let's say that you're not able to pay yourself in 6 months. So, I mean, what happens to your business? Or growth? How much can you actually invest, to reinvest to the company, like right this moment? These are the questions that we actually need to know. Like, and the bigger the business, the bigger the problems are. So often you might realize or find yourself in a situation where actually you might do some mistakes it's going to actually cost you like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if you are like growing, then how to invest safely so you will not run into any problems. And this is actually a review of the book, and it actually has such a good point here. So the guy is saying that if he had adopted the practices in this book when he started his company 10 years ago, he would already be a millionaire. Just think about it. So it's still the same company. It's still, it's still the same income. It's still the whatever he's been doing for 10 years. But just having this super simple principle, I mean, just following it would make such a drastic difference. So the key concept is actually this Parkinson's law. Like, okay, works expands to fill the time available for its completion, meaning that, okay, if you have 1 week to do some task, then you will spend 1 week on it. If you have 5 minutes, you will spend 5 minutes on it. And kind of same concept we can apply to money as well. Like the guy I mentioned, that no matter how much he makes, he still ends up with nothing before his next paycheck. So make use of what you have, and then frugality. So when there are these constraints in place, it like increases innovation, because you are in the situation that there's less money, the more innovative you just have to become. And then remove this temptation. It's totally different thing, like when we see that we have like one bank account which we use, whereas we would have like several different bank accounts which we like assign to a specific purpose. So having multiple bank accounts, vault, and vault means that it's basically an account that you don't touch at all. Then having this frequency that twice a month you go through the cash flow, meaning that, let's say that you're paying some invoices or whatever, you don't do it like at random times, like at ad hoc. No, instead you actually just do it twice a year, for example, in the 10th and 25th of the month, so that you build also this awareness that you know that what are all the expenses that you are having, and also what is the income that you have available to use. So let's talk about these bank accounts. And I really recommend in simplifying things, and so not really go, because there's actually a version of this book also designed for e-commerce sellers, which has something like 10 plus different bank accounts, but it doesn't make sense to, go with too many accounts. It's much better to start with something and then basically add more if you need more. But income is the account that you set up in, for example, the deposits coming from Amazon. So it's basically the account that all the income is coming, that you use for the income. But this is an account that you do not pay any bills from this account. Instead, twice a month, you allocate the funds from this income account to other accounts that you have. For example, the profit, the owners pay, taxes, operational expenses. So profit would be that, okay, what's the company profit that you want to take, not just once a month, but actually from every time that you do this allocation. For example, that it's a percentage that you actually start taking. And then owner's pay means your own salary, like how much are you paying yourself. So that's more like fixed amount. And then taxes, so meaning that it's allocated for example, VAT and any other kind of like business taxes. And then this is whatever we have remaining, it's going to be the operational expenses. And this is the account that we use for, you know, card transactions. We use it for like different, pretty much paying all the expenses that the company has, right? And especially like before, like we were using, like initially, like when there weren't really available these virtual bank accounts that we are using nowadays. So, I mean, we had this bank account set up in the banking, in the online bank, and having all these different accounts for it. But then actually it happened that, you know, we started, like I was doing one year, I was doing calculations, like how much are we spending on bank fees? Like how much are we spending on bank fees to this traditional bank? Then I noticed like, oops, it's like 15,000 euros per year. Just paying for the bank in terms of doing these, I mean, when doing international transfers for suppliers and all that stuff. So, and then currency fees and all those things. So that's where actually also when we started using more these like virtual accounts, meaning that you're able to pay much less in fees and pay much less in currency exchange and so on. The downside was that, you know, when you got these services, they typically gave you just one account per currency, and that was it. You couldn't really do this. I mean, you couldn't really use it in the same way anymore, or at least to the same extent. So what ended up happening is that then we were like, well, damn, I mean, we want to save money. So we kind of like neglected or we were doing more like half-assed version of this profit first system, which means that basically we were only having these virtual accounts with, you know, where we sent deposits and where we used basically made different like currency exchanges and so on. But the problem was that then we also realized quite soon that, okay, now we are actually lost the whole thing that we started doing this profit first. So we lost these things in, first of all, I mean, the constraint in allocating funds for how much you're manufacturing, and also like for taxes and all that stuff. So, but luckily, I mean, nowadays, these services, a lot of these are actually giving an option how to do this in practice, meaning that you are able to add these different kind of like multiple accounts in these virtual services like TransferWise, nowadays known as Wise. But anyway, so the system is basically so that you have these accounts, but the thing is that, I mean, even in this case, I mean, you don't need all these different accounts like travel training. I mean, you don't necessarily need that, and employee payments and so on. So it's much better to start with the minimum amount of bank accounts. And the reason why it's, you know, real bank accounts, it's number two here. I mean, remove this temptation. And I remember when I was talking to an accountant, actually, no, it was one business owner. I was explaining this method to him, and he was saying that, like, why would you want to do that? I mean, you can already see this kind of this information in a spreadsheet or in their tool, like whatever bookkeeping tool they were using. But when I actually explained the concept that, I mean, when you actually have like the real bank account assigned for different purpose, like manufacturing, it will give you this constraint, and it will give you limitations on how much you are able to spend and grow. So that was kind of like eye-opener for him as well. But the funny thing is that he wasn't able to, I mean, he got so excited about this profit first system as well, but his accountant, his bookkeeper didn't allow to do that, because it would have made his job a lot more complicated. But it's true, a lot of bookkeepers don't like these practices. But we have this practice for the business to protect the business, not for the bookkeepers, right? But yeah, I mean, there was this comment previously, but I mean, I don't have profits yet, so I mean, I cannot do it. So how can I do profit first if I don't even have profit? All right, but it's not something you have or you don't have. I mean, this is more of an approach where you actually build in the profit. And yeah, I mean, you could start with just 1%, 1% profit, which means that, okay, let's say that you get $1,000 deposit from Amazon. Then you just transfer $10 into your profit account. So if you can run your business with $1,000, you can surely run it with just $990, right? Or if it's 20,000, then it's $200. So thing is that you basically start with something, and then when you end up in having when you are able to do so, then you keep increasing this percentage. But who cannot take 1% of their every deposit, because it doesn't really make that kind of it doesn't, for sure, I mean, it doesn't make big impact money wise either. Like if you're just saying, oh well, I'm taking $10, so that's like $20 per month, but you will never miss that 1%. So it's a low bar, but it's something magical will happen because you will start proving this system to yourself, and you won't get rich by doing 1% of 1,000. But I mean, you will get this wealth of confidence realization that, okay, why am I doing this business? I'm actually doing this business in order to be able to pay myself. And here's a bit of a ugly looking spreadsheet, but I actually don't, we do have a template for this, but I recommend you don't start using the template straight away, because it can be a bit too complicated. And the thing is that it's actually much better to start with super simple, and even start with blank piece of blank spreadsheet instead of just using someone else's template. So minimum approach for this would be that you just create a couple of these accounts. You have income, you have profit, you have taxes, you have operator expenses, and you have the owner's pay as well. And then you just start allocating funds from this income account twice a month. And then you pay the expenses from this operational expenses account. So that's super lightweight approach in how to take this into practice. Because let's face it, usually if we get super excited about something, we might take even a pretty complex system in use, but everyone else also have to understand the system, and it needs to be so easy that we don't get the temptation to start skipping and okay, we didn't do it this month, let's do it next month. No, it's something that we basically should be able to follow all the time. But yeah, I mean, how we do it is that we also have the spreadsheet, and then we do these different kind of allocations, and then in our online banking system we just do the transfers, meaning that, okay, from income account it goes to owner's pay, and then we basically what we are left with, then we move over to the operational expenses account. And yeah, I mean, I mentioned Wise there. So it's also nowadays possible to do this, set up these accounts in Wise using groups. And you can have different currencies for groups, meaning that typically we are going to be having at least US dollars and euros accounts for this, at least for income. And then like we basically, at least the way I'm doing it is that I try to have, I do actually usually try to do as few currency exchanges as possible, meaning that if I receive from European markets euros, then I'm going to be using that to pay, bills in euros and so on. So this is, well, it's quite new feature anyway. I guess it's been already a few years, but anyway, the purpose for these groups, suits nicely profit first, because it's meant in wise to create this pool of money and separate the money to pay specific suppliers and so on. So, and when you basically inside of Wise, you would be able to also like allocate different teams to different accounts, which means that if you have employees and you want to give them access to certain funds, but obviously you don't want to give like admin access, then you can set up a separate account, like team expenses, and then give them access to it. Nowadays, it's also possible to use like different cards on these different accounts. But the lesson here is like just start doing it and start slow and never stop doing it. So like I mentioned, like some of the mistakes that we made was that for example, we were doing this pretty religiously, for many years. But then, when we also, I wanted to start saving money in currency fees and bank fees and all the stuff. Then we took more use of these virtual accounts. We kind of make it more complicated. So it was a bit more complicated to maintain the system. But nowadays you don't have that problem because, for example, Wise supports these different accounts, and basically we could use different virtual bank-like services to be able to do this system. So there's definitely a way how to do this. But the point is that it's not just a spreadsheet where you see the numbers. No, it shouldn't be even possible to start paying invoices from funds that were not allocated for that purpose. Meaning that if you get a great idea that, hey, I need to buy this inventory, I have a great product idea and so on. So the only account that you actually use for that purpose is the manufacturing account. Because only when we have that constraint, it forces us to take a moment and think that, okay, is this something, first of all, that we can afford to do? Is this something that we should be doing right now? And what are the risks? What are the risks if it doesn't go the way that we are hoping it to go?